good afternoon or good morning. It's mid-time. And I'm so happy that I have a very young author who is tread into an area which is dominated by male writers. And it is mythology, as we know. We have many trailblazers writing and publishing in this particular field, mythology. Some call it mythology, but I think there is a feminine voice that was much needed in this area, and I'm so happy that we have with us today for this session Anuja Chandramouli. As I said, she writes mythology at a moment, as we know, myth has never been more popular and never more precarious. That is a word I wanted to use today. And in her introductory session, they said she is a best-selling author, consistently among the top-selling Indian writers on Amazon, and she commands an army of devoted readers. And I should say she's very popular, and it has not meant dilution. Yet, it meant for her, I think we were having conversation today, and she says it is a tremendous responsibility at this age where she has to deal with very complex, very very ambiguous topic like myth. And in Shakti, the divine feminine, Anuja does not offer us a decorative goddess. Please don't think that it is all about the usual feminine goddess that you will see or experience. But she gives us Shakti as a cosmic energy, rage, creation, destruction, sexuality, and also transcendence. And this is especially unsettling for many of us who have listened to the one and only narrative. And I would say that it has been very patriarchal too. Myth also, to a certain extent. As a teacher, I know when you teach mythology in class, at times you wonder whether these stories do have a feminine side, do have a feminine voice. We know that women in India have been writing from 1500 BC to 500 BC, recent times, but some of them were easily erased. Their presence have never, ever been visible. So it is her words, I think, you cannot but hear them. And her works asks an uncomfortable question to all of us. And that question is, what does the divine feminine mean in a world which is so cruel to the human feminine? We speak about the divine feminine, but we know the world where women are, tortured, vandalized, atomized in so many ways. So this is where our conversation would begin. And Anuja, my first question would be definitely about this. Mythology today is immensely popular. They are the bestsellers and also deeply simplified and politicized. And when myth becomes a mass consumption rather than contemplative inheritance, what do you think is mainly at stake for all of us?
Thank you, Latha, for putting it all across so succinctly. And you are right. Myth is very, very relevant today because unlike in the rest of the world where Greek, Roman mythology, Norse mythology, it's treated today as charming fiction because those gods aren't worshipped anymore. Jupiter or Zeus or Thor is a Marvel character now. Kids will know him as an Avenger. They do not know the rich mythological lore behind it. This is where the dilution happens. But in India, these gods are going strong. As popular as they always were, in India, we take our myths very, very, very seriously. We don't see it as just stories. In fact, even if they were stories, we have a track record for killing over these stories, which means it is very dicey to reclaim this material. As you said, it is an inherited treasure for all of us. It's comfort food, it's us returning to our roots, and that is a good thing. But the problem crops up when this powerful source, this treasure trove, is weaponized, it's politicized, and it is used to perpetuate a very troubling narrative which leads to the enslavement of not just women but minorities. And this is something which we shouldn't allow to happen, because at its heart, myth is neutral. It conveys the distilled wisdom of the ages, which is what we are trying to reclaim. And we have a long tradition of questioning our myths. We are well within our rights to do so. It's sort of like a child, no? And when you're sitting and talking at home about the Ramayana, a child says, what Rama did was wrong. He shouldn't have asked Sita to prove her purity. No one's going to get mad at the child. We encourage these questions because we want discussion. And I'm afraid that, in today's climate, there's a rampant climate of fear and censorship. And we are not doing ourselves or our myths any credit by succumbing to this pressure. We owe it to ourselves, our ancestors, as well as future generations to keep engaging with the myths in a way that is beneficial to all of us. And that is what I try to do with my writing. It's a feminist reinterpretation of myths, and I'm not doing anything drastic out here, because there are so many liberating stories about badass, kick-ass women. It wasn't always, a simpering, coy goddess who's dressed in gorgeous silks and jewelry. How do you go to war when you're dressed like that? The rites and rituals sometimes tend to trap you within their confines, whereas myth was always about opening up these wide vistas for you to explore the furthest reaches of the cosmos that's within your reach if you just surrender to the flow of mythology without getting caught up in the politics of it all.
So my question is, how will you see when you look for a search about divine feminine? How will you conceptualize that? Because we live in an era where this place itself is now, we all feel so blessed to have Sunita Williams with us. And this is an age where where women go beyond what we can ever aspire to. And here we speak about the divine feminine, and spirituality is another thing that is fast selling. So how will you make it relevant for people who could conceptualize what do you mean by that word divine?
Okay, the divine feminine is not an alien concept for most of us over here. All the youth grapple with that term because Dan Brown made it very, very famous with his Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
But even before that, India has a very, very rich tradition of Sakta worship, goddess worship. It's considered the left-handed path, and we love the goddesses in India. We place them on a pedestal. There are impossible expectations from a goddess, right? So we do have that tradition, and in fact, the Devi Bhagavatam has a very charming visual. It conjures up where the goddess is portrayed as sitting on a throne, and the throne stands on the heads of Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, and Dharma. So she's literally sitting pretty on a throne held up by the Trinity as well as Dharma. But I feel this is a case of classic overcompensation. Okay, in myth and stories, we say, the goddess, we worship the divine feminine. But in reality, in the real world, women's needs, are they prioritized? That is the question. Are we prioritized? Even recently, right next to Calicut, there's a big case happening, dominating the headlines, where a woman videotaped a man who was feeling her up, and it went viral, and this man killed himself. And now everyone is saying it's a very complicated case. I'm not going to get into the particulars, but the point is they come down hard on feminists. Feminism is considered a very dirty word. Everybody says, I'm a humanist, I'm not a feminist, but I am a proud feminist, and I'm here to say that feminism equals humanism. It is about equal rights for all. It was never about giving an unfair advantage to one gender over the other. Okay, so we need to reclaim this proud feminism, because patriarchy cuts both ways. Men are also hurt by patriarchy, and this thing where there are false cases, it hurts women more than men, is what I'm trying to say. And when we talk about the divine feminine, what exactly does it mean? I started writing Shakti because it's a book very close to my heart, and at the time I used to do content work for a news website, and I covered the Nirbhaya case.
Oh my.
Which still upsets so many of us, because this brave heart was ruthlessly gang raped and murdered, and we should not forget these cases. And we all spoke about safety for women at the time, and I have 2 daughters, and I got this news late at night, and I found myself crying. I like to think of myself as cynical, as someone who has a hardened perspective. But when I got the news that she'd passed away, I found myself in tears. I have 2 daughters, and I was asking myself, what kind of world is it going to be for my children? And at that time, I was thinking about how we are told all these beautiful, inspiring stories about Shakti, Durga, Kali. And the point of these stories is Shakti, Durga, Kali, they are not looking for a knight in shining armor to come and rescue them. The way we've been force-fed fairy tales where you're supposed to wait for Prince Charming. Don't. Shakti worship is about embracing the inner Shakti, about empowering yourself to be the hero in your own story, about coming to your own rescue, about being there for yourself, about not being afraid. Why should we be afraid to go out in our own country? This is our home. How long are we going to be held hostage at rape point? We need to be brave. This is our land, and we need to be smart. That's all there is to it. Smart, go forth, and the future belongs to us.
Now, when coming to the topic of Shakti, there is, when you look at our tradition, when we do research, I know that you have researched a lot on the concept of Shakti. What we have here is there is a tantric and mandric tradition on one side. You have Kamakya, Ma Kamakya, and all the Shakti sthals on one side. And there is the feminine spirituality on one side. And it is not very easy, because we have people who have been revered, like Paramahamsa, and then Paramahamsa Yogananda, then Vivekananda, who all speak about worshipping Mother Kali, Mother Goddess. And then ancient literature also speaks about Kalidasa. Kalidasa, who was blessed with Ma Kali, and then he got this exceptional power to write. So there is that on one side. And as you said, India, the horrible tragedies that occur to you, even every second or every minute, we listen to such stories. So as you were negotiating this concept of Shakti, there is the tantric, mandric, and also the spirituality, which is heavy for us as a nation to negotiate. So how did you negotiate those terrains and condense them into this concept of Shakti?
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Shakti, one of the challenges was dealing with this dichotomy that has been foisted on us for generations. And I'm talking about this dichotomy where on the one hand, the goddess is revered. Okay, and then on the flip side, you have women who are villainized for being witches and something that rhymes with it. Okay, so it's the Madonna and the whore complex where people make snap judgments about you. They take one look at you, they want to see how you are dressed, whether you're saying the right things, or better yet, you should be silent and keep your eyes down if you are a woman. Don't look up. You should be seen, not heard. They teach us all these things. And that leads to so many of the real world problems which we are dealing with. Because men feel that, okay, if she's not a good girl, then she's fair game. I will feel free to tease or molest or whatever, okay? And that is something I've questioned over here. Because traditionally, we all know that women are complicated creatures. We are not goddesses. We don't ask to be worshipped on a pedestal. It's unreasonably high expectations. And we are not bad just because we assert our rights, because we have something called ambition. Okay, so that is something I wanted to address in this book and show that the goddess has a very, very human side. And that spills over into the children of Purusha or Prakriti, the masculine or feminine force. Okay, now you might ask, okay, this is 2026. Why are we still talking about ancient mythology and whatever is problematic over there? Because a certain precedent is set through these stories. For an example, take the Ramayana and the infamous Agni Pariksha, where Sita was asked by Rama to prove her purity. And the legend says that she walked into the flames and they did not harm her. Now, in the real world, we all know that fire does not discriminate in the least. Whether you're good, bad, ugly, man, woman, and child, it will not spare you. But the onus of proving purity still rests with women. It's an impossible thing to do, and all we have to do is flip through the newspapers. Every dowry harassment case or an honor killing, it's about women being set alight. It's a modern day Agni Pariksha where there are no winners. It's just violence and large scale damage. So I always question this. Let us not celebrate the glorification of, burning women. Whether it's Johar, whether it's Sati, any kind of Agni Pariksha, we need to address it and say it was never correct. It was never correct. It is never okay to celebrate that a woman has been burnt on the altar of the male ego. So in My Shakti, we are looking at the very, very complex myriad faces of the goddess. And I also want to stress that it's not stuff I'm pulling out of thin air. It's not just fancy. It's not just me shoehorning facts to fit a rah-rah feminist, narrative. It's not like that. It is all there in the original Sakta lore. I referred to the Devi Mahatmyam, and as I said, the goddess is very empowered. She does not take the beaten road. She mentioned Tantra, Mantra, and all of it. It's considered the left-handed path of worship, which means it's unconventional. There are lots of women who choose not to marry, who choose not to function within the confines of convention. And in ancient times, they were not vilified for it. But, over the years, I think that's how it is. There's an ebb and flow to it. Every time women claim their rights, the patriarchy steps in. There's politics factored in, which means we should never give up the good fight. We owe all the rights we enjoy today to the feminists, brave feminists of the past. So we need to pay it forward and make the world safer for our daughters, granddaughters, grandsons. Like I said, patriarchy cuts both ways.
And when we look at the history of sexuality, and I think Foucault says that India and Greece had a lot of freedom when it comes to sexuality. I'm bringing this subject because you also deal with transgender, LGBTQ, and especially this particular. So I think there was a lot of freedom that the goddesses enjoyed, or the concept of the feminine enjoyed at that point of time. And how would you, as a young author, look at the way it has been framed derogatively or very subversively at this point of time? So would you like to speak about how these voices, because when you look at Kama Sutra, for example, I think if you look at it, and also if you have traveled up to Odisha, and if you have visited the Sun Temple, the openness of the of our nation stands testified. So how, as a young author who is writing about mythology, how would you look at this, especially when you are treating with the divine feminine?
Okay, so this again is very difficult and challenging to write because due to various sets of circumstances, many believe that women are not allowed to have desires south of the border. Okay, male desire is always encouraged and accepted even when taken to extremes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when it comes to feminine desire, it's either exploited or severely stigmatized and punished. But like you mentioned, this wasn't always the case. Indians have had a very open, enlightened view on sex and sexuality. It's not just the Kama Sutra, which is the most notorious and famous treatise. It is not porn. It's a scholarly work which most people don't seem to get. And you mentioned our temple art, whether it's Khajuraho or Konarak, we see this joyful celebration of sex and sexuality. And there was the Dasi tradition in certain parts of India, the Devdasi tradition, which is again highly misunderstood, okay? Because these were women who were highly cultured, educated, and they were wielders of great power, okay? Which made them more, enviable than the queens and princesses who were locked up in harems, whether you call them Mandapuras or Zenanas, whatever. The Dasis enjoyed a degree of freedom, and they supported, they were like feudal lords. They had power and plenty of money, and they were policy makers, artists. They've written a lot also on sex and sexuality. In fact, there's a very famous book written by Dasi called Mudupalani. Okay, the book is called Radhika Santwanam, and it's a very nice book. It's sort of like a handbook for a lover, where Radha's aunt is advising Krishna about how to please a woman in bed. Because she says, women are insatiable, and if you want her to be loyal, this is how you please her, Krishna. So here you have Krishna being a willing disciple, listening to this aunt school him on how to satisfy a woman. And this was actually written, but how many people have heard about Radhika Santwanam or Mudupalani? And much later, when the anti-Nach movement was happening, and I agree, it did have to happen because a lot of the Dasis were exploited. It was a form of catering to male desire, and some women empowered themselves, but others were exploited. So yes, change, reform was necessary, and Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy did fantastic work to reform this Devdasi tradition. But at that time, some of the Devdasis fought for their ancestral rights. One of them was Bangalore Nagaratnamal. And it was she who published Mudupalani's Radhika Santwanam at her own expense. And at that time, so many critics, mainly men, but lots of women also, they said it was one prostitute who was plugging another prostitute's work. And she held her head up high, and I love her response, by the way. She said, if chastity is a housewife's dharma, then promiscuity is a prostitute's dharma. And I have stayed true to my dharma. And I was thinking, my God, we've had women like this. Their stories are not widely shared. Instead, we are told stories about Kannagi and Arundhati. I have no issues with them, but we are told, see, these women were so devoted to their husbands. Savitri, she followed her husband unto death. These feminazis, see what they've done to our culture and tradition, and we are told we should be good little girls and we should please our husbands every which way, even when they're being unreasonable jerks. We are force-fed these stories, Whereas in Indian mythology, you have plenty of stories about women who are kicking ass and being badasses. So I'm just trying to reclaim these stories which, tell us, okay, there are many ways to live in this world. Choice is important. As women, we cannot afford to be stupid. We get to make smart choices. And by the way, I keep telling this to my children, and they call me cringe because I do it. It's not about the choices themselves. It's about making your choices work for you.
That was a kind of a statement that we'll all carry home, Anuja. And one thing that I wanted to ask you is, you have conceptualized Kali, Durga, and also Shakti. So would you like to tell the audience about, and also the story of Ushes, which has got a lot of similarity between the Greek or any of the other mythological stories of a woman being chaste. But in the introduction of this book, I found that is when the divine feminine appears, Brahma is yes, lusting for her, and Shiva is also, Shiva is in love with her, and Vishnu is also attracted to her. All this, I think we have to imagine that we are living in a particular age where one narrative is very strong. Do you experience any fear in writing very honestly about or discussing about these things, because it is against the sentiments, because you are bringing goddesses to a very kind of a vulnerable situation? Have you experienced fear at any point of time?
Actually, I would love to say that I'm a fearless creator. I don't give a damn about consequences, but that's not actually true. The truth is, I was raised in a convent school run by nuns, and my mom is super strict. And between the nuns and my mom, they hammered restraint into me. So my sister likes to say, "You are very fearless when it comes to writing, but in the real world, you're such a stickler for rules. You are so boring." And that is the harsh truth here, because because I've always been a good student. I stick to deadlines. My teachers have no issues with me. I wasn't exactly considered a rebel without a cause, but when it comes to my writing, I'm the exact opposite. I am reckless. I have the recklessness of a suicide bomber. And I'm not at all endorsing suicide bombing, but when it comes to writing, I like that it feels like a place where I can go where angels fear to tread. I love that about that space I've created for myself. And when it comes to goddess lore, it is very tricky, because Shakti is loved with the obsession of, billions of stalkers. People take goddess worship very, very seriously, and they feel that a lot of these myths are set in stone. So they will say, "How dare you? How dare you twist the story? How dare you subvert it?" They don't understand that, my research, comes from a place of love and respect and affection for this material. I'm not trying to provoke, I'm not trying to grab eyeballs. I'm just trying to do justice to the stories in a manner that makes sense to me. So when it comes to Ushas, like she mentioned, not many people know that this is one of the earliest iterations of Shakti. Okay, and Ushas is mentioned in the Rig Veda, and lots of the hymns were about Ushas and not even Indra. In the Vedas, you don't see the Trinity the way we know them now. The nature gods, Indra and Vayu, Varuna, Agni, they had more sway. Not many even know that Hinduism itself has changed. It wasn't even called Hinduism. It's changed over the ages, and we've kind of added this, removed this, and adapted to suit the needs of the age. So the Ushas, the goddess of dawn at that time, was the numero uno goddess, and there's a hymn which talks about how Indra hurled his thunderbolt at her. We know Indra has a massive ego, okay, monster sized ego, and he does not handle threats to his power very well. So there's this myth which suggests that Ushas was the victim of Brahma's incestuous passion for her, but we all know that aggressors in cases like this are seldom punished. The victim most certainly is. So Ushas was driven away from the heavens and shamed. So I was thinking, see, this is the pattern which we all deal with, where we are forced to play the role of a victim. And I would always tell myself, I can also tell plenty of stories where men have misbehaved, and I will tell myself, I tell my own story, and I will not make place in my story for pigs. I'm a bit of a narcissist also. So I'm a very I, me, myself girl. So I'm very happy to keep, the focus on me. I don't want to play the victim card ever. I don't see myself as a victim. So when I explored this myth, it wasn't that Ushas remained a victim. She went, she reinvented herself, and she emerged as Durga. Durga means someone who's not easily accessible, a fortress. You go to Durga as a supplicant. okay? You don't summon her to battle. All the gods go and fall at her feet. All those, it's a testosterone overload when it comes to our pantheon of gods. So Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Indra, and all the 33 crore devas have failed with all their sexy, fancy weapons, their propensity for violence. They've failed. They go throw themselves at the feet of the goddess, and we are told that she wields 10,000 weapons and she kills some asura or the other. For instance, like Mahishasura. But that is again problematic because, this is how men view how women would act. They seldom understand us, right? We don't feel the need to pick up all these boy toys, these guns and these weapons, and go traipsing off into battle and ruin our manicure, right? And get our hair all messed up. We don't fancy that stuff. With Durga, it is simply about, she's called Mahamaya. Okay, so all she does is lift the illusion which cloaks a demon, a buffalo demon like Mahishasura. She shows him who he is. Okay, see, I feel guilty when I have an extra helping of dessert. That extra chocolate cake is going to weigh heavily on my conscience. Imagine if you are a murderer. Imagine if you've used your power to destroy millions of lives. You've raised entire continents to the ground. She just shows him the ramifications of it all, the ripple effect, the extent of damage of which also spills over from his past life. Okay, Mahishasura was delivered from blood and fire and violence. Again, Indra was the aggressor here. The actual legend which people don't know, Indra really screwed with Mahishasura's parents. He killed his father's brother who was only performing penances. His father was endlessly persecuted. Karma made him fall in love with a buffalo. Even in ancient times, that kind of masculine desire is not encouraged. So he was stigmatized, driven out, and his pregnant buffalo wife delivers this kid apparently, and his parents are murdered shortly after. So he grew up with a hunger for violence. So he's a wounded animal. What the goddess does is expose him to the truth, heal his wounds, put him out of his misery. That is what women do. We teach men how to be compassionate and kind. We are not in a hurry to jump into battle unless it's absolutely necessary. Kali can, outfight all the gods in the pantheon. But, the stories have layers to them. And that is what I try to unravel and make it accessible to a mainstream audience who don't have the patience for years and years of research.
And I should tell you, Anuja, there is the one irony is that women are also becoming extremely violent in the sense that we have a lot of women planning and plotting and killing and using violence as a means. And that is something, I mean, when I look at violence, is that question that comes to me is there a gender for violence?
I'm glad you brought this up.
Is there a gender for violence? We speak about the divide all the time between the feminine and the masculine. But when it comes to violence, sometimes as mothers, you become angry, you show your worst self. It is men who actually pacify and say, please, please don't do this. So that gender, does it exist when it comes to violence? Because women are also prone to all sorts of, that is what we read in papers now. So
yeah. I agree. I think women as well as men, violence, power, it corrupts without discrimination. So men and women become victims, they get addicted to it. But see, in this world, unfortunately, the reality of it is that men are at the top of the food chain. It's not because they are cleverer or better or more talented, but I think men are the most savage species on earth today. A lion or tiger, no apex predator can compete with a man. And women, when they say the female of the species is every bit as deadly, I agree. Women do it. And the thing is, feminine rage has been glamorized to the point where, everyone thinks it's acceptable that you lose your temper and you rage and rant. It works on social media, but in the real world, see, I'm also a dancer. So we are exploring the Navarasas in dance, and Rautra Rasa or anger is very easy to do on stage. It's fun, you get angry on stage and everyone says you look hot and they're all clapping for you. But you realize that Rautra Rasa is very different from Veera or strength. Strength is harder to access than anger. Anger comes from a place of insecurity and fear, and therefore nothing good comes when you act from a place of anger. In Godfather, I think Michael Corleone is advised this. He's saying, whatever move you make, it should come from a place of strength, not weakness. We will do well to listen to this advice. So, the focus should be on being strong inside. It's not about giving in to your fear, insecurity. You shouldn't think if I don't attack, then I will be attacked. That only attracts more violence, hatred into your life, anger, intolerance. So it's better, it doesn't look sexy on social media, but peace, shanta. Everyone, according to the Natya Shastra, all the other rasas lead to peace. That should be your ultimate goal. Shanta rasa, strength and peace, not rage and shringara, which is also, shringara in the bhakti sense is a spiritual form of evolution. But we focus so much on the sensuous and we are not expressing it in a healthy way. We either overdo it or we are sexually frustrated. So in Sakta worship, in goddess worship, they make it clear that there's nothing wrong with exploring your sexuality, provided you keep one leg in the realm of the sexual, the other leg in the realm of the spiritual. That is how you manage that fine balance where you don't have to punish yourself or be punished just for being true to your sexual self and your spiritual self.
And when it comes to young readers, especially those who are Gen Zs are over now, we come to the alpha. So they see women in space, as I said, in science, in leadership, breaking limits daily. How challenging it was to write for you with credibility, that is the myth that will appeal to them, resonant and powerful for generations that refuse inherited hierarchies. That's the most important. That is, there are certain hierarchies, as you pointed out, we have inherited consciously and unconsciously. So what was the challenge? And especially when I was reading your book, language, there is, language carries a lot of dominance or lot of hierarchies. So what I have noticed is, I do not know whether you have consciously moved away from that kind of language. And I want you to speak about how consciously or unconsciously you have used your language to write this story differently.
So I have a rule for myself when I'm writing, and that is I don't like to overthink it, because again, I'm one of those people who overanalyze things to within an inch of its life. So I urge myself to surrender to the process itself. I've done a lot of research. I've read narratives from all over the world. I've taken copious handwritten notes and done the research. So I urge myself to surrender to the flow of the story. So it's sort of like I'm in the driver's seat, but I'm not actually driving. I'm just strapped in for the ride, and it becomes a beautifully immersive, intensely fulfilling, rich experience. So I want my readers to get the essence of that experience, and I feel language is just a tool. The words you're using, sometimes it can be harsh, sometimes it can be extraordinarily beautiful, but that is reality. It's not always rainbows and sunshine. I know there are lots of influencers who talk about positivity, positivity all the time, but I think that is a little toxic. Because when you are too committed to false positivity, you become divorced from reality. So I like to keep it real. Yes, there is ugliness in the world and it coexists with supreme beauty. We've been given one life. We are all privileged. We are all lucky. Let's make it count. So I want that to be the takeaway, that everything, it just is. There is neither good nor bad. Everybody has a process. Even people who are called bad people, who belong in prisons, whatever. If there's one thing mythology and goddess lore has taught me, it is trying to understand where they come from. Even the hated villains, I think in society today, we need more compassion, we need more tolerance, we need to be less judgy fudgy. You know, I'm not saying let the rapists and murderers go scot-free. Let's garland them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to examine the root causes of why they did what they did. It's monsters who create monsters. And it is monstrous situations that spawn monsters. So we need to fix that. And maybe, just maybe, we would have achieved something great as a generation. Maybe the world will get better, not worse.
And one thing that I have, as you read, you expect a kind of an ending that is already there with the readers. But what I found was, I felt that you have compromised a little bit between Shakti and Shiva. In the sense, I expected the Shakti to take a definitive stand, and that was a narration that was swelling up. But I find that it is the usual stereotypical M&B ending where, I'm sorry to say that, but I never expected that at the end, where the typical Shiva says to Parvati that we should be together, and without you I will remain incomplete, and so on. So I would like to hear from you what your thoughts are on that particular stereotypical ending of this particular work.
You don't have to apologize. I told you I love it when, these discussions come up, and I did get a lot of heat for that. But the thing is, when you declare yourself to be a proud feminist, people expect a very feminist narrative. They want Shakti to have the upper hand. But I told you, I tend to surrender to the demands of the story and reality as I see it. Because they say in mythology that Shiva without Shakti is Shava, a corpse, but it works the other way around also. Shiva and Shakti are two equal and opposing forces, for better or worse. They build each other up, they tear each other down, and round the merry-go-round goes, unfortunately or fortunately. It's a very dysfunctional, toxic love story if you look at it that way, but I see it as unstoppable force meets an immovable object. It is what it is. It's Newton's law. It's just science wedded to spirituality. And he is like the vast sky. She is like the turbulent sea. And I look at it this way. Though the sky and the sea are far away from each other, somewhere in the horizon, they embrace. And it's impossible, but possible. And I love it.
And I think, do we have time for one or two questions? Yes. The session is open to the audience for maximum three questions.
We have, as we discussed here, we have the goddess like Durga, Kali, so many female goddesses are there. This Durga and Kali can fight very easily because they are just stories. What about a girl who is raped in a train or bus publicly? And is any type of this tantra and mantra help her in this modern age?
See, now this is again symbolic of something that is, we are talking about symbolism here. As I mentioned in my version, they are not picking up tridents and going into battle. That's because that's not women are wired to do. Of course, some women are trained fighters, commandos, all of that is there. But I'm saying we women have our own weapons. We can take care of ourselves, though at home we are told, don't go anywhere without a man, don't go out after 6 p.m., don't cross the road. But women are surprisingly resilient. People don't give us enough credit for that. We don't have to pick up a knife and stab a man to make him feel the pain. We can laugh at him and make him feel the same effect. So women do have weapons which we use at our discretion. It doesn't necessarily have to be, like I said, these stories were told by men. They visualized Kali and Durga as, a female version of what male gods do. But that is not how it is exactly. It's only symbolic. And as I said, we women bring certain things to the table which men aren't aware of.
Hi. So I just had a question related to female rage. So when you were saying, about strength, right, instead of violence, instead of resorting to violence, right? So women has been oppressed for generations now. And then now finally they're fighting for it with anger, with rage, with violence. And I don't understand what the problem with it is. And also, like, why does it always, why does the onus lie on women to make men understand or to make other people understand with all the strength, you know, to deal with things peacefully while they are the ones going through the oppression, being molested every day, being abused every day. So, like, if it manifests as anger, as rage, why is it villainized?
No, I'm so glad you asked this question. And I'm not going to say female rage is problematic, villainized. I don't view it in those terms. The way I see it, it's very simple. Anger is a very, very useful tool if it's channeled well. Okay? So now there's a saying, it's a cliche maybe, but they say don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Okay, so let's face it, women, if there are 5 men and if it's only one girl armed with, say, maybe she's carrying mace and she decides to use it, do you think it will help her against 5 men? So sometimes I feel you need to outsmart a man, you need to outthink a man, and that should also be brought up. That should be something women should be encouraged to do, and you need not be the one to initiate violence, especially when the odds are stacked against you. That's all I meant.
This is always the question about marginalized communities, be it women or be it the LGBT community or the, caste wise. When you think about it, the only, for only resort they have left to is just resort to violence, because nothing else is working. Because I mean, when you come from a place of privilege, it's very difficult to, make them understand that, okay, this is where we are coming from. All the years of going through this conditioning that, and you've enjoyed all the privileges as a man, right? And then it will be very difficult for a woman to peacefully engage with it, especially when the other person has no idea what a woman is going through. And also, another thing that I wanted to ask you, this is just a question, maybe it's my ignorance, I don't know. You were talking about the Devdasi system, right? So I have read about this specifically when from what I know about it, I think Devdasi system is a system in which, like, women, girls, young girls, before puberty, are being married to the god, right? And they are, after puberty, they are, like, a lot of, news or a lot of articles has been in a lot of articles, it has been stated that they're abused, they're, they're basically used without their consent sexually. A lot of women have come up with all these things. And also, you were talking about, I don't remember her name, Reddy,
Muthulakshmi
Reddy, right? Yeah. I don't know the exact history behind it, but then I think that she was at the forefront of abolishing the Devdasi. Yeah. So I was just curious about your take on it, because from what I understood from what you were talking, Devdasi system kind of,
Yeah,
gave a
see,
sort
I
of.
get it. I get it. I'll address the first part of your question first, where you said that violence is the only option for many. I will have to disagree with you on that, because when you're an oppressed community, or if you're a woman and you tell yourself violence is the only solution, you're shutting your eyes deliberately to the many other solutions that are there. Today, we have options like education. Once upon a time, women were not educated, even the princesses. Because of feminists and other activists, today we have access to that. So, the smart choice would be to focus on building something with your life and getting yourself a wider platform where you can address these issues, where you'll be taken seriously, where you become a policy maker. If you are only going to resort to violence, like I said, you make a bad situation worse, because the cops are going to arrest you and kill you in jail. And then you, by being a martyr, have you served any purpose? Is that what you want for your children? No, because it sounds good in a movie. In a movie, it's nice when they choose violence. They make violence look so sexy. But the reality of it is violence is ugly. I'm just saying there are many options. Explore all of it. Violence, the goddess also, she chooses violence when necessary. There's a time to be angry. There's a time to be smart. And I'm a Gandhian, by the way. Today, I know it's not fashionable to say that I agree with the Mahatma's way of life. But Mahatma Gandhi was a highly, highly flawed human being who never nevertheless taught us that there's an alternative to violence. And I like to think that he knew what he was talking about, that sometimes a peaceful solution. Martin Luther King also swore by it. So I feel why not? Why not throw that into the mix? Anger violence is the easy choice. Why not take the harder path to bring about change? As for the Dasis, I did point out, yes, there was a lot of exploitation happening. But think about it, these women had access to education, power. They were very rich, powerful women. So some of them made it work for them. A certain hand was dealt to them. They snatched power for themselves and they built temples. They used to feed the poor and needy. So they used all the wealth they were able to access by commodifying their bodies, and they employed it in a good cause. That was the difference between a dasi and a vesha, who was a prostitute who wasn't paid much. That was the difference. So some of the dasis did fight for their ancestral rights. They were considered eternally auspicious, nitya sumangalis. In those days, the worst thing that could happen to a woman was widowhood. And think of them, they are eternally auspicious because God cannot die. So that was power, raw power. Some of them used it well, some were destroyed by it. That is the ugly truth. And as I said, it's never this or that. It is usually this and that. And so Muthulakshmi Reddy was very right to fight against the Dasi movement. But I'm also saying Bangalore, Nagaratnammal, and even MS Subbulakshmi, all of them managed to, adopt a little of Bala Saraswati. So they kind of managed to retain some of the elements from the past while doing away with the problematic aspects of it. And Rukmini Devi, she managed to restore respectability to the art itself. It was called Sadir when the Devdasis performed it. She called it Bharatanatyam and she made it uber respectable. So today we have a beautiful art form which continues to educate and enlighten girls as well as boys. So, from the ashes, good things do come. Yes, of course, privilege is part of it. That's an unfortunate truth. Some of us have privileged background, some of us don't, some of us have dumb luck. But dismissing it as only privilege is also counterproductive, because sometimes some people manage to make the privilege count. So you can't say just because someone's privileged, they haven't used it to help others. And just because someone's underprivileged, it doesn't mean their intentions are always good. Reality is messy, like I said.
This is, I agree almost 100% what you said. But along with that, a lot of females are sitting here. But one strategy, I'm a professor, politician, kind of a thing. But one strategy actually you are not adopting is, you are always saying that, even the feminists are saying that men and women are equal. But it's not. Women are superior species than men. That's, first of all, you have to understand that. And once you understand and it's propagated, then why men are actually keeping the patriarchal system tough is, the minute you are getting the power, it's like I give the chief ministership to a better person than me, it will never get back to me. So similarly, the men will never give you the power, because being a superior species, if we hand over power to you, it will never come back to us. So we always keep it with us. Until and unless you take it from us, you will never have it. Fundamentally, in the police department, hardly 12% is the female population. Until and unless crosses 33, it is never fair. You can check with all the home secretaries and all the police officers at the top. Minimum is 33 is required. So 50 is the ideal. So until and unless females argue that they are superior, whether it is examinations, whether it is fighting, whether it is thinking, or whether it is delivering, you are better than males, this fight will, or this equality will never come. That's what my argument. Why don't you fight and say that you are a better species than men? That is my question.
No, see, I love how you put that, but I'm afraid I disagree with you. I don't see it as women are superior and men are inferior. I think we are sort of mirroring the male attitude when we do that, because that is what it is. Men think just because I stand up to piss, I'm better than you. Why should we mirror that same crappy attitude? I already said that we women look at it differently. Not every conversation has to come down to whether you have breasts or balls. Pardon my French, but that's the truth of it. And the way I see it, why should you be a wielder of power or a victim of power? Why? Power corrupts. I already mentioned it. Why say, no, I want the top spot on the food chain and then I will get corrupted too. And then who the hell knows? If I were a male, I'll probably be toxic as hell. So maybe the point of being a woman is, as I mentioned, we bring certain skills to the table. Men also do. I'm enough of a feminist to concede that my husband disagrees. He says he's hopelessly underappreciated, and he's probably right. But I will concede that there are some things the guy is good at, you know. So I like to think like in a very, like your average dysfunctional marriage, you know, there's a bit of give and take, and we try to balance the masculine and feminine energies, and we try not to kill each other. Anita Nair is sitting there, and I'm so inspired by her book, which says How I Killed My Husband. So, you know, if you don't kill each other, it's a win. You know, we get by. There's an uneasy truce. Balance is there in nature, you know, and I'm confident that it will assert itself when the balance gets skewed. Thank you.
I think unfortunately, we do not have time for more questions, but the order will be available for discussions, and I'm so happy. Sir, this is the change that we are speaking. We need voices like her who understand and fight for justice, who can never, ever be bowled over. And here at KLF, with women like them writing and speaking and interacting, I'm sure the change will come. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Latha. It's been an amazing session. And thank you so much. You've been a lovely, lovely audience. Love you, Kerala. Take care. See you soon.